Good afternoon, everyone. It's Rabbi Akiva Males. Today is Wednesday. It's the 25th of December, and we're getting ready for Parshas Miketz as well as Shabbos Chanukah. Now, truth be told, I'm recording this, and it is not yet Wednesday. It's Monday night. Layla and I are packing, getting ready to leave for Israel. Wednesday morning, we're going to go visit my parents and spend Hanukkah with them. We're looking forward to our trip, but nonetheless, I wanted to share some Divrei Torah with you as we prepare for for Shabbos Chanukah. So I'm going to put up some Divrei Torah on the screen, and let's go right to it. Okay, just bringing that up right now. There we go. Okay, so the first of our Torah we're going to be seeing tonight is as follows. We're in Parshas Miketz, and in Parshas Miketz, we have Yosef finally meeting up with his brothers. We know that the way the Parsha begins is that Yosef's been languishing in prison, in an Egyptian prison, and after 2 years in that prison, we are going to read, actually, after 2 additional years in that prison, Paro has some dreams that terrify him, and he can't find a good interpretation of them. So he summons all of his cabinet members to ask them, do you know anyone who might be able to interpret my dreams? And the Sar Hamashkim, his butler, tells him about, yes, I met this fellow named Yosef. He's in the prison, and he did an excellent job interpreting my dream. So he makes the introduction, and Yosef emerges, and we know how the story plays itself out. He finds himself in a position of great prominence. And once he sets up Egypt for success, that they're going to be able to store up all of the food that it's growing in the years of plenty, all the neighboring countries start sending others down to Mitzrayim, so they will be able to purchase food as well. So we're going to see that the brothers, Yosef's brothers, actually come down to Mitzrayim to purchase, and they don't initially know that it's Yosef, but he recognizes them. We're familiar with the story. So the Torah tells us as follows. The pasuk tells us that eventually Binyamin comes down, and when they're all reunited, they gather for a great big meal. And the pasuk tells us it's in Perek Mem Gimel, that's chapter 43, and it is pasuk Lamed Daled, that's pasuk 34. The pasuk reads as follows: Vayisa masaos me'es panav alehem. He had portions brought to them from before him, and it says Vaterev masas Binyamin mimasos kulam chamesh yados, and he makes sure to give Binyamin 5 times as much of a portion as what he gave the other brothers in terms of gifts, in terms of clothing, whatnot. And then it says finally Vayishtu, and then they had what to drink together. Vayishkeru imo, and they became intoxicated together. Rashi says Vayishkeru imo. Rashi writes Umiyom shemachru, from the day that they sold Yosef, lo shasu yayin, they didn't drink wine. They were feeling that wasn't the right thing what they had done. The lo hu shasu yayin. Excuse me, Yosef also didn't drink any wine because he was not feeling in the right state of mind to enjoy some wine. Voso hayom, but this was the first time, meaning the 22 years they've been separated, and neither of them had drank wine. This was the first time they drank together. Voso hayom shasru, that's when they finally drank wine for the first time, and that resulted in them getting intoxicated. I saw some of the commentaries on Rashi say, what's going on? And they say as follows, is that the Shvatim, they were very, very noble people. They wouldn't have just gotten drunk. That's just not, it's not in character for them. So rather, what happened? What happened is none of them had touched wine for 22 years. Their tolerance level, as a result, decreased. So all they had was a glass of wine with their meal together. That was enough to put them under the table, just because of the fact that they hadn't drank in 22 years. Their bodies had no tolerance to alcohol. We've all met people like that. We've met people that can drink plenty and they don't seem to be affected by it. And then there's another person who all it takes is 1 cup of wine at the Pesach Seder, and then they're all giddy. What is that? It's their tolerance levels are very different. So that's how I saw some commentators in Rashi explain this. Let's look at what the Tosefes Bracha says. I think he offers a very interesting take on this. So Tosefes Bracha, again, that's Rev Baruch Halevi Epstein, and he's more known for his Sfarim, the Torah Tamima. Later in life, excuse me, I'm sorry, he wrote more Sfarim based on additional Torah comments and that he had developed, and that's Tosefes Bracha. So let's see what he says here. Vayishtu v'yishkaru imo. They drank together and they became intoxicated. Perish Rashi. Rashi quotes a medrash that says, "Miyom shemachru lo shasu yayin." Since the day they sold them, the brothers never drank wine because they weren't feeling good about themselves. Also, ayom shasu. This was the first time they drank. Aval bechlal kasha. He says, but in general, I don't understand this in the first place. L'simchazu malahem lishtos ad l'shikra. Why are they drinking now? Why are they having this party where they're drinking to become drunk? Now, again, the way I had shared with you a few moments ago, some of the commentators said they weren't. They were just having a glass of wine with their meal. But since they hadn't drank in 22 years, their tolerance level was down. That's one way of learning. The other way of learning is just a flat out reading of the psukim that seemed to say that they were having a festive meal and that's why they became intoxicated. If that's the case, so Tosefes Bracha is asking, what were they thinking? What was the occasion? What was the party here that they were drinking and they're becoming intoxicated? What's the great simcha? What are they doing? Especially when you take into consideration all the terrible events that have befallen them. What are they doing? Why are they drinking at this point? How does that make any sense? So he says as follows. I like this. I think this is a very clever suggestion. It's possible to say as follows. They felt compelled, and they were compelled to have something to drink and get a little tipsy. Why? It's evident in this parsha that Yosef had initially suspected the brothers of all being spies. And what do we know about spies? They got to be very, very careful to keep their stories straight because the slightest mess up and their cover will be blown. So therefore, what do we know about spies? The last thing a spy is going to do is drink enough alcohol that they would get tipsy. Penny kashlu shonam, because what happens when someone gets tipsy? Now they're what's that expression? Loose lips sink ships, right? From World War II. Is that if the government was saying if we start broadcasting where our ships are going to be sailing, loose lips sink ships. The German U-boats will sink them. So that's generally what happens is that when people have some top secret information, the last thing they want is loose lips. So they're not going to become intoxicated. So he's saying as follows. The way of spies, when people are involved in some kind of secret efforts, the last thing they're going to do is drink and become intoxicated. Penny kashlu bil shonam, because then maybe they'll trip up, they'll slip up with their tongues, they'll say the wrong thing. And they'll end up letting a secret out, something that was necessary, whatever it was they were trying to keep secret. We know it's a very famous Gemara that teaches us that when wine comes in, yatzasod, that's when secrets come out. That's just what happens. We loosen up when we have something to drink. V'chashvu, and therefore the brothers thought, asher im yisarvu milishtos, if we refuse to drink, in other words, we're not in the mood to drink, but they're testing us. They think that we're spies. So how are they testing us? They want to apply us with a little bit of alcohol, and they want to see what happens when we let our guard down. If we absolutely refuse to drink, what are they going to say? Oh, this confirms the fact that they're spies. They're being very careful not to drink. But if we drink, we're showing we have no secrets. We've got nothing to hide. The best way to disprove the accusations of being meraglim was to show we have nothing to hide. We're even willing to drink, become tipsy. We've got nothing to hide. There's no secrets here. That's what he says. V'chashvu, they felt asher im yisarvu milishtos. If we refuse to drink at this meal, yischazek etzlo achshad mimraglim. Then he's gonna further suspect that we're spies, and we don't want that. Ki al ken lo yavu lishtos peniskala in yanam. Because he's going to say, I know why you're not drinking. You don't want to drink anything because you don't want to let your secrets out. Therefore, they felt compelled they had to drink. I thought this is a very interesting angle, what he's saying. What he's saying is that, you know why they drank? It wasn't there was a party. It wasn't they were making l'chaims. They were offered wine at this meal. And there was a very strategic calculation. If we refuse, that's going to give ammunition to all the suspicions that we might be spies. What's the best way to prove we're not spies? We'll accept the offer. Okay, we'll drink and we'll show we're not scared to become tipsy because we got no secrets to hide. We're not worried about the wrong things coming off our lips. Whereas if they had said, no, 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 we're not drinking, then that could cause them to suspect, they got some secrets there. I just wanted to share this, made me think. I think this is a very clever explanation, but also made me think of something. The Gemara tells us that there are three ways to identify the true character of a person. The Gemara says, Bekiso, Bekaso, Uvekoso. It says Bekiso. Kiso means with a person's pocket. Yeah, a really good hallmark to see about a person is, are they a spendthrift? Are they someone who's a miser? You can see how a person deals with spending money. That tells you a lot about their nature. Do they waste their money? Are they too stingy? It's a very good way to get to the core of a person and understand them is to see how they are when it comes to their spending. The next one is Picasso. Picasso is when it comes to anger, when they're pushed into a very frustrating situation. How angry do they get? Are they able to keep control of their rage or not? And the third one is Bacoso with their goblet. What happens to them when they have something to drink? Do they just fall apart and become a wreck? Or do they all of a sudden just become a blubbering mess? Or are they a dignified person? So that's what the Gemara says. There's three ways to get to the core of a person and really see what they're all about. Kiso, Caso and Coso with their pocket, how it is when it comes to spending money, Caso when it comes to issues involving anger, and Coso when it comes to their drink. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law in Toronto, they would joke, they say there's a fourth one. It's not just Kiso, Coso, and Caso. There's another one that also starts with a cuff, and that is carpool. They set up in Toronto in the schools that their kids were in, there was no busing. So there was this rotation between all the parents about carpool, and they were joking that say you can really tell a lot about a person the way they handle carpool. And are they responsible? Are they not responsible? Are they on time? Do they remember it's their turn? And that's what they said. You can really tell a lot about a person about the way they handle their carpool responsibility. So they added a fourth to it up in Toronto that it was Kiso, Caso, Coso, and carpool. That was what they said. It just made me think of that, seeing what the Tosefes Bracha said here. Okay, I'm gonna get off of this share screen because I want to go to a different screen, and that'll bring us there. So let's go to a different screen. Why is it not letting me go to a different screen? Okay, I'm sorry, just give me 1 second. We're going to get to a different screen. Okay, I don't know why it's not letting me get to the other screen. So I'm sorry, just give me 1 more minute. Okay, I think I figured it out. We're getting to the other screen now. Okay, I want to share something with you that it's not Parshas Miketz. This actually relates to last week's Parsha. This relates to Parshas Vayeshev. However, it still is, we're in the Parsha of Yosef and the brothers, and it also relates to Chanukah. It's a beautiful idea. I saw this. I'm going to share this with you. This is also in the Tosefes Bracha from Rav Baruch Halevi Epstein, but you'll find it in more than just here. I saw something very similar in the Chassam Sofer, and also Rabbi Shlomo Kluger, that great Gaon, the Rav Shlomo Kluger. I found he has a sefer called Kehilas Yaakov, and in Kehilas Yaakov, he deals with this medrash that we're going to quote, and he offers like 18 different ways to understand it. He's got like 18, I'm not kidding. He's got about 18 different approaches. He loved this medrash that we're about to quote, and it seems like he kept coming back to it year after year. So we're going to see one approach here that the Tosefes Bracha uses. Again, as I said, I saw something almost the same in the Chassam Sofer, as well as almost the same from Reb Shlomo Kluger. But I thought the way that the Tosefes Bracha set it up here is really good. So let's use this Tosefes Bracha. So I'm just scrolling down. So in Parshas Vayeshev, when Yosef was having that strife with his brothers, so we know that his father sent them to go check up on him in Shechem. He wanted to check up on the brothers rather in Shechem, see how they're doing. And the pasuk tells us that they initially wanted to kill Yosef. They were so angry at him. They thought that he was out to get them. They thought he wanted to get Yaakov to curse them. So they initially wanted to kill them. And Reuven was successful in convincing them that no, that's not what they want to do. So the pasuk tells us that Reuven says, "What's the point? What are we going to kill him for? That doesn't make any sense. Let's not do it be a dime with our own hands. Let's throw him in a pit, and he'll die on his own." And then the pasuk says, "Laman hitzilo sam miyado lashivo alavim." The real intent of Reuven was not to let Yosef die on his own in that pit, but rather he wanted to rescue him, and he was hoping that he would bring him back home. When the brothers would leave the scene, he would go back to the pit, he would rescue Yosef, and he would bring him back to the father. That's what the pasuk tells us. The pasuk gives edus, it testifies as to the altruistic nature of Reuven, that was his true goal. So let's see. We're going to see this is the Tosefes Bracha. He writes as follows: B'Sefer Zera Avram. There's a sefer out there called Zera Avram. It's Mefarish LaMedrash Rabbah. It's a commentary that's on the Medrash Rabbah. In Parshas Vayeshev, it says as follows, and he goes, you'll also find this elsewhere. The sefer Yalkut Eliezer, Chanukah, Oschav Zayin. And again, I was telling you, I saw Rav Shlomo Kluger brings us down 18 different ways to understand this medrash, and also the Chassam Sofer. So many people quote this medrash. Brings down this medrash Haggadah al a pasuk b'Shir Hashirim. There's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim that says as follows: Hadudaim nasnu reach. The dudaim. There's many ways to translate it. The most common one is going to be it was a specific type of wildflower. If you remember, that was in the parsha of back when the Shvatim were being born, and Ruvain was out, and he picked dudaim in the field. And Rachel really wanted those dudaim, so she made a deal with Leah that if Rachel could have the dudaim of Ruvain, then Yaakov could. She was willing to give up her night with Yaakov and trade that to Leah, so she could have those dudaim. So dudaim were some kind of wildflower. So it says hadudaim nasnu reach. The pasuk in Shir Hashirim says that those wildflowers give off a pleasant aroma. Ve'al pischenu. And near our doorways, kol megadim. Near our doorways are all sorts of beautiful megadim, could translate as to treats, or it could also mean fruits. There's all sorts of fruits and beautiful products near our doorways. That's the pasuk in Shir Hashirim. So the Medrash says as follows: Hadudaim nasnu reach. The Medrash says, what does the pasuk in Shir Hashirim refer to when it says the dudaim, those wildflowers give off a nice aroma? Zer Ruvain. That's referring to Ruvain. Shehitzel es Yosef. Mimisa. He saved Yosef from death by convincing the brothers to throw him in the pit rather than to come straight out and kill him. Ruvain saved him. That's what the Medrash means. Hadudaim nasnu reach. Val pischenu kol megadim. And when it says, and by our doorways, that's where you'll find all sorts of choice fruit. Zuner Chanukah. That's talking about our Chanukah menorah. What on earth does that mean? What is the connection? That because of Ruvain, that's why we have a Chanukah menorah. What is that? What is that talking about? V'nishalti al people, it seems like this was a common medrash that people would ask people to darshan and explain this medrash. And it says, V'nishalti, and here's the answer I shared. And as I said, many people have darshan on this medrash. As again, Rav Shlomo Kluger came up with at least 18 ways to address this medrash, and I saw this also from Chassam Sofer, almost the same approach that we're going to see here from Rav Baruch Halevi Epstein. He says, so how did I explain this medrash as follows? Ki kishenedaktek ladas. He goes, there's really a question that begs an explanation. Lama b'ner Chanukah mitzvah lenicha b'Pesach hayotze l'Rishus Harabim. The initial way that the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah was set up by Chazal for Jews when they were living in Eretz Yisrael was that it should be placed outside the home near the doorway of, but they used to have a courtyard, the courtyard going to Rishus Harabim. And you'll see this in Israel today. People have a glass box and they'll put their Ner Chanukah inside that Ner box. It's near the doorway out in the public area. So he says, what were Chazal thinking? Why were Chazal so intent that when it comes to Ner Chanukah, we want to have it near the Pesach, near our doorways, going to Rosh Hashanah, but for Hesia, in a very public fashion. Ubepurim, now contrast that to Purim. Mutar likra Megillah afilu b'fnei acheder shebebayis. There's no mitzvah when it comes to Purim to take it out to the streets, take Megillah reading out to the streets. You could be inside. You could be in a small room in the house. You could be in the back room in the base medrash where there's no windows. There's no idea of going out in the street and publicizing the mitzvah of Megillas Esther when it comes to Purim. Yet when it comes to Chanukah, we say that we want to publicize it as much as possible. Where does this come from? Achatam bazeh. What's the reason for this? The original nace, the original miracle of Purim in its original time, there already was tremendous pirsum. It was very public. Everybody knew what happened. Remember, there had been billboards hanging for an entire year saying that come the next Adar, the non-Jews could have their way with the Jews and massacre them and take all their wealth. And then what happened, this incredible turnaround, that on that day, that's when the Jews were able to stand up and defeat their enemies. So there was no secrets. Everybody knew something extremely special had occurred, a miracle had occurred. There was built-in pirsum, there built-in publicity. Therefore, when the mitzvah goes into effect, when Mordechai and Esther established the mitzvah of reading Megillas Esther, there's no reason that within the mitzvah there should be pirsum, that we want to do it out in the street to spread the word. The word has already been spread. For some, the very nature of the whole Purim story, it was public. The Kriyas Megillah Hirak Mitzvah Zechira. When we read the Megillah, what we're doing is we're remembering the story. We're not publicizing it because people didn't know about it. Everyone knew about it. We just need to remember it. Once a year, we want to remember it. But it's so different when it comes to the miracle of that flask of oil in the whole Chanukah story. The only people who knew in real time about that miracle, that it was actually occurring, that this pach shemen, this one flask of oil that should have only lasted for one night, lasts for 8. Who knew about it? Who had first-hand knowledge? Just the people, the Yechidei Segula, the select few who had the right to be in the Beis HaMikdash. L'chein, therefore, when Chazal set up the mitzvah of Chanukah, l'chein tzarich lefarsimo. They said the whole way we want to get the word out there, because not everyone knew. Very few people had first-hand knowledge. So part and parcel of the way Chazal set up the mitzvah of Chanukah is to publicize it. Put it in as public a place as possible. Again, the original takana in Eretz Yisrael was to be outside in a box. People in Rosh Hashanah could see. When we're in Galus and we're not in the land of Israel, that's where it became, okay, it's indoors, it's in our house. If we have a window, matov manoim, that's the best way to do it. But there, intrinsic within the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah is an effort to publicize it. Why? Because we've got work to catch up on. Not everybody knew. The entire generation didn't know, didn't have first-hand knowledge. We have to spread the word. Innate within the mitzvah of Chanukah that Chazal set up is it's our mission to spread the word because not everybody knew about it. We have to publicize it. The al-kain, therefore, mitzvah lanicha ner pesach rishus harabim. Therefore, the original takana, the original decree of Chanukah by Chazal was to set it up in the doorway in Rishus Harabim, because we want to publicize it and help spread the word, because word hasn't gotten out there yet. Let's continue. Now let's go back to Reuven. The Torah tells us by Reuven in last week's Parsha Vayeshev that Reuven said, I want to throw him in the pit. And then the Torah gives us this piece of information. The Torah is testifying to us what Reuven's true intent was. But anyone who was there at the time, the other brothers, they had no idea that Reuven really wanted to save him. They thought he wanted to kill him too. So he says, when the Torah uses the expression, that his true intent was to save him from their hands, Kama Parsha, here in Parshas Vayeshev, that was in the hidden recesses of Reuven's heart. He didn't publicize it. He didn't say to his brothers, I really want to save him. Ya'an kilo higir kazos before. He couldn't tell his brothers that he really wanted to save him. He would have been the odd man out. They would have done away with Reuven. His brothers wouldn't have listened to him. The brothers wanted to destroy him. They wanted to kill Yosef. But nonetheless, the Torah says we're not going to let this moment go by without publicizing. We want we want the record to show, the record to state that Reuven's true goal was to save Yosef. He says, so what do we see from this? Shedavar seiser shal mitzvah, dorish lefirsum. That when it comes to mitzvahs, if they were done privately, It is kedai. It is important to publicize it. When it comes to a mitzvah, we want to publicize it. Why? Because this will encourage others. First of all, it'll tell us, it'll inform us about the character of the person who did the mitzvah. We'll appreciate that person more, but also this will inspire others to do mitzvah. So when it comes to mitzvahs, we want to publicize it. So let's see that last paragraph now. V'zoi kavanas hamedrash. That's what that medrash means when it says hadu da'im nas nureach, that the flowers give off a pleasant scent. Scent Ruvain. That's Ruvain. Dudaim kinoi leRuvain. Ayin Sham va'imsa Dudaim Asadeh in Parshas Vayetze. Dudaim. Whenever we speak about Dudaim, that's a nickname. That's a code word for Ruvain, because Ruvain was famous for finding those Dudaim, those fragrant wild flowers. In the field, the ones that Rachel wanted so badly. So it says, what is the matter saying? Hadudaim nas nureach. That's Ruvain. Shechashav mitzvah so b'seiser. He thought about doing this mitzvah, and it was in the recesses of his heart. He never publicized it. However, what did the Torah do? Upirsama haTorah. The Torah says we need to publicize this because we need to know about Ruvain. We need to know about the true nature of Ruvain, that he was compassionate. He wanted to save Yosef. We're going to publicize that, says the Torah. Because it's such a pleasant aroma to know the true nature of Ruvain, what his real goal, his aspirations were. Then the Medrash continues, and at our doorways, that's where the fine fruits are. Zed ner Chanukah. That is the Chanukah menorah. What does that mean? Klomar, l'meidin anu mizeh. We learn from Ruvain, the way the Torah treated Ruvain, the way the Torah says we're not going to let a good deed like that. We're not going to let that stay secret. We're going to publicize it. So Chazal said we learned from there, and that's why when they were Mesakeh in Chanukah, and we want to celebrate the miracle that Hashem did, we have to celebrate it. We have to publicize it. We have to let everyone know about it. If the Torah wants to tell us about how compassionate a person Ruvain was, and let us know that Ruvain was out to save Yosef, how much more so do we have to let the world know, especially Klal Yisrael? We have to let our own people know how much Hashem loves us, how much Hashem saved us, how much He cared for us in the whole Chanukah story. Because left to its own devices, only a few people had that firsthand knowledge of the flask lasting for 8 days. So Chazal said it's our job to spread the word. Where do we know that this is important? We know it from Ruvain, how he wanted to save Yosef, and the Torah publicized it. So that's what the Medrash is saying. Hadu daim nas nureach, that's Ruvain, how he wanted to save Yosef, and the Torah publicized it. And because of that, that's where Chazal's inspiration was when it said, the second part of that midrash, at our doorways, that's where the choice fruit are. That's Ner Chanukah. What inspired Chazal to say that Ner Chanukah, our menorah, is going to be at the doorway? When we analyze the fact that the Torah publicized what happened with Ruvain. That's what he says here. Ner Chanukah klomar l'meidin anu mizeh. We learned from the whole episode of Ruvain and how the Torah publicized it. L'ner Chanukah. We learned from there to Ner Chanukah. Shaneis hayah even though the miracle happened in a very hidden way that only a couple people in the Beis Hamikdash knew about it, nonetheless, we have to publicize it. And that's why when it comes to Chanukah, there's this whole idea of Pirsumei Nisa, that again, in the original takana was to set it up outside, at the doorway of the courtyard that's going out to Rosh Hashanah. And nowadays in Golos, that our menorahs are inside our homes, we'll put them by a window when it's possible, when it's safe, because we want to have Pirsumei Nisa as well. Where did we get this from? That there's an Indian, that it makes sense that we want to be Mefarsim, that we want to spread this. We got that from Ruvain. So that's how the Tosefes Bracha wants to explain what the Medrash says about Hadudaim nas nureach, Vapeschenu kol megadim, that pasuk from Shir Hashirim, that the Medrash says that the first part of the pasuk is referring to Ruvain, and the second part of the pasuk is referring to Chanukah menorah. It makes sense. It's the Medrash is explaining to us what inspired Chazal when they established the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah to do it in a way that's going to be as much pirsum, as much publicity as possible. I want to tell you that this actually shows up in halacha as well, outside the world of Chanukah. Some of our commentaries bring this down. I know that the Chassam Sofer quotes this, and others quote this as well. The Ramah, the famous Rav Moshe Isserles in Shulchan Aruch in Yeridea, it's Siman Reish Mem Tes, and it's Sif Yud Gimel, and it's in the middle of Hilchos Tzedakah. He says as follows, that when we give tzedakah, we don't want to flaunt it, so to say. We want to do it for the mitzvah. However, at the same time, he writes as follows. He writes, I'm sorry, I'm just getting to it here. He writes as follows. Mikol makom mi shemakdish davar l'tzedakah. If someone dedicates something to tzedakah, let's say a ritual item, they give something to shul or they make a large donation to shul, he says mi shemakdish davar l'tzedakah muter lo sheyichtov shemo alav. He's allowed to write his name on it. Sheyeh lo lezikaron, that the person should be remembered as my family gifted this to the shul, to the yeshiva, whatever it was. Basically a plaque. He's saying, the Ramah is saying, even though we don't want to use tzedakah as a feather in our cap, we want to give it for the right reason. Nonetheless, if a person wants their name inscribed on the item they gave, or they gave a significant sum and they want a plaque in the shul or in the yeshiva, whatever it is, they're perfectly entitled to do so. And then he says, not just are they entitled to do so, viroi lasos kain. It's fitting, it's appropriate to do so. Why is it appropriate to do so? For two reasons. Number one, this will inspire others. In other words, if anyone just sees anonymous, then no one's gonna know. It won't be an inspirational item. But if I see my friend's name and I say, wow, my friend gave tzedakah, my friend gave up some of his hard-earned money, resources, whatever it was, and I know that friend, it wasn't like he was super comfortable, super wealthy, and he still gave tzedakah. You know what? If he could do it, I could do it too, and that'll inspire me to give. So that, number one, and number two, for family and descendants, those who come after, it'll make them feel that there's a legacy. This is part and parcel of who we are. We give tzedakah. I've got to live up to that legacy too. There's what to be accomplished by not just giving in anonymity, by being anonymous, but rather attaching our name to it. And that's what the Ramah says. It's not just that it's mutter. He says again, it's not just mutter lo. He says roi lasos kain. It's most appropriate to do so. I also saw that in the Torah Tamima, because remember we said this was the Makor Baruch, Rav Baruch Halevi Epstein. He also wrote the Torah Tamima. When he in the pasuk in Vayeshev, I hear about Lamana Hatziloso. So it's very interesting. Usually in the Torah Tamima, when he wants to quote something from Torah Shabbal Peh that relates to the pasuk, he'll usually quote from a Gemara or a Medrash. So I'll quote, a Tana or an Amora. I thought this was very interesting. I'm not an expert in Torah Tamima to say this is an exception. It never happens, but I know that this is very rare. Here he doesn't quote a Tana or Amora. Here in his Torah Tamima, he quotes a Rishon. He quotes a halacha from the Rashba. He writes as follows. He says, Mikan, the Rashba learns from this pasuk that the pasuk emphasized Lamana Hatzilo Somiado, that the reason why Reuven wanted to throw him into the pit was because he wanted to save Yosef and bring him back to his dad, Yaakov. He says as follows, Mikan, from here, what do we learn? Shiroi lichtov ulefarsem es ha'osa mitzvah. It is roi, it is befitting to write down and to publicize someone who does a mitzvah. Shaharei Torah pirsama mitzvahs Reuven. The Torah here emphasized and publicized the mitzvah that Reuven did, shechashav lahatzil es Yosef, that he said it was important that Reuven said what he really wanted to do was to save Yosef, lashiva alaviv, return him to his father. The Rashba, he's quoting the Rashba here. The Rashba, he says this in his chuvos. He says this in his halacha works. I thought it was fascinating that the Torah Tamima here is not quoting a Medrash, it's not quoting a Gemara. He's quoting a Rashba, a tshuva from the Rashba, saying this there. So again, I thought that this fits very nicely with the Makor Baruch. The Torah Tamima is the same author. So we're leaving today with two Divrei Torah. The first was a nice thought on Parshas Miketz. It's a way to make sense of that pasuk, a very clever new way to make sense of that pasuk. Why did the brothers drink when they had that festive meal, that festive get-together with Yosef? They didn't know that it's Yosef, their long-lost brother. They just thought the king has had them over and he's not going to punish them. And now for taking their bags of money that had the bags of food that had the money in it. So but why they drinking to the point of they're getting inebriated? And we saw that the Tosefes Bracha said a very nice idea that they did that to prove that they weren't spies. And then we saw another beautiful idea from the Tosefes Bracha that we said is very similar to Shlomo Kluger and the Chassam Sofer, how they want to make sense of that medrash. That medrash of Hadudan Nasureach, that it was Reuven's actions in saving Yosef, and the fact that the Torah publicized it. That's what inspired Chazal to tell us that there's got to be this element of Pirsume Nisa, publicizing the miracle when it comes to the Chanukah Lech, when it comes to lighting our menorah, and that's something that we should apply to other areas of life as well. If we're involved with a mitzvah, let others know about it. If we give tzedakah, it's not haughty to attach our name to it. We don't have to just write anonymous, because by doing this, number one, we'll inspire others to give, and number two, it'll let our family, it'll let our kids, it'll let others know this is our legacy. This is who we are. It's incumbent on them to continue it. I just want to conclude with the following idea. I had this idea that when we do a mitzvah, it's kedai, it's appropriate not to just let it go anonymous, but to attach our name to it. There's another element there as well. We can make a Kiddush Hashem. If we just do a mitzvah sometimes and we don't let others know I'm doing this because I'm Jewish, we keep our baseball hat on, whatever it is, we're not wearing our Magen David necklace, whatever it is, then okay, it was just a nice, good deed. Wow, that's someone who was a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. But if we let people know that we were Jewish, we clearly identify ourselves. Not only are we doing something that's right, but we have an opportunity to also make a Kiddush Hashem. This came up in conversation recently. My brother in Baltimore, he asked me a question recently. He said that he's involved in computer repair and computer work. So he said he was doing some shopping recently at a computer store, and in the parking lot there was it looked like left in a shopping cart was some various computer items. It seems as if a customer earlier in the day had purchased some items and apparently had left a couple in the shopping cart out in the parking lot and forgotten them there. So my brother was asking me, what do I do with this? Is there a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda? Do I know that this fellow was Jewish or not? So I said, you know what? How much are we talking about here? He said it's about $100. So I said, you know what? I said, don't even get involved. Is there a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda or not? Forget that. You have an opportunity here to make a Kiddush Hashem. Go back into that computer store and say, hey, I found this in the parking lot. I'm a Bible observing Jew, and I wanted to go back to its owner. I know I would want someone to do that for me, so I want to do it. And that's what my Bible asks of me, to be honest and care about other people. I said, think about it this way. This is potential $100. Easy come, easy go. You could take that home. Don't even get into the halachic discussion. Is that okay to take it home? Is it not? Forget all that. You're not going to really appreciate that $100, but I'll tell you what, with that $100, you can buy eternity. You can buy nitzchias. Why? Because you have an opportunity to make a Kiddush Hashem. You have an opportunity to make a Kiddush Hashem by letting them know you're doing this because you're a Bible observing Jew. There's something to the Bible. There's something to Hashem. And what he expects of us as human beings. And you'll make a Kiddush Hashem. And my brother told me that's exactly what he did. And the person in the store actually told him, wow, I'm so happy you did that, because we've been getting some phone calls from a customer who's saying he knows he bought stuff and now he can't find it. He's concerned he left it in the parking lot and nobody saw it. And now you turned it in. That's wonderful. That's really, really nice. Look at that. He was mefarsim it. He didn't just leave it on the doorstep and say, oh, here, I found this. He brought it in. He took the effort to bring it in. So he attached his name to it. Not only was he able to reunite the owner with this, but he also made a Kiddush Hashem in the process. So that's another lesson out of it. Something that we also gain from attaching our names and being mefarsim and being public about something, is that we also have the potential to make a Kiddush Hashem. Okay, I want to wish everyone a good day. I want to wish everyone a good week, a good Shabbos, a wonderful Hanukkah. Again, Layla and I are on our way to Israel to visit my parents and family. And I wish you all the very best. We're thinking of you, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should answer all our tefillos. We're going to try to offer our tefillos while we're in Israel. Should answer all of our tefillos together with the rest of Am Yisrael. And just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu enabled Klal Yisrael to defeat its enemies and be saved and to be rescued from all of its suffering and all the oppression that it faced, so many years ago on Hanukkah. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu perform miracles for us once again, make it clear that He's intervening on our behalf, and allow Klal Yisrael, allow Am Yisrael to be free of its enemies, those who are taken from their loved ones to be returned home, those who are in need of refuah shalema and wounded, they should be blessed with that and should be healed b'karov soon in our days. All right, have a good day, a wonderful Hanukkah, and a most enjoyable Shabbos, everyone. Bye-bye.